So that deep sense of caring about your work, about your creation was there, which was very attractive to me because that resonates a lot with how I want to work as well. If I don't care about something, then what's the point, so to say?
Of course.
So that sense of care and passion was very attractive to me. Fast Track at the time, which is still true today, had a very strong vision, which they truly believed in. So the purpose was very clear, the vision was very clear, and it was one that I wanted to be part of, or I could see myself adding value towards achieving that vision.
Welcome to this week's episode of Culture Pulse. I'm so happy to have Jenny Arnell with me today. Jenny is an outstanding HR leader with more of a decade of experience in the iGaming industry. Currently, she's holding the position of Chief People Officer at Fast Track, a company that many of you probably know. She is noted for creating vibrant and inclusive cultures, and her direct involvement and deep insight into workplace dynamics have resulted in several success stories. So today, Jenny will share her journey, the lessons she's learned, and talk a little bit more about her ongoing impact on the future of work. So super happy to have you here today, Jenny. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
Oh, thank you, Joanna. I feel very honored to be part of this very exclusive space. I tuned into one of your episodes the other day. I think it was with Hannah from WeLab. And it was really like insightful and inspirational. So happy to be here.
Nice. Yes. So basically, I don't know if you remember when we first met. It was, I don't know how many years ago exactly, but you were interviewing me actually. So the tables have turned. Do you remember?
Certainly. I do remember. And it was, but I can't recall exactly the year, but it must have been, definitely 10 years ago, 10 or 8, something along those lines, right?
Yes, I think it was my first year when I moved to Malta, so like 2015, 2016. So I guess our experiences grew from that, but I'm so happy that we still, living in different countries. Now I'm living in the US, you live in Sweden, but we still manage to keep in touch and have always those HR conversations going.
Yeah, I remember I really wanted you on board, and I know that we had really good conversations. So our paths crossed, but then you took a different path. And I guess today, in retrospect, we're both very happy that happened. Your journey is super impressive. So I'm glad we actually didn't connect at that time from a workplace perspective, but that we followed each other from the side.
Yes, we've always been somewhere there and always connected at least like once a year somewhere along the line. So that's really fun to also see your progression and your journey. So obviously I know a little bit about your background and kind of how your career developed since we met about 10 years ago. Can you tell me a little bit more about your journey? Just for those who don't know you, how did you get into HR and how your career flourished from there?
Oh, wow. I can try, and maybe you can help me navigate the story because it's not going to be linear. So I've never had like a particular career path. I think it's a good thing to start off by confirming that. A lot of things has happened quite randomly, I would argue. But where did it start? So it started after, I think, upper secondary school, where I felt that I needed a bit of a gap year before my university studies. And so I thought, okay, what do I want to do? I want to see a little bit more of the world. I want to improve my English. I was on my way as an au pair to Australia, but then Malta randomly came along the way. And I moved to Malta. So I think that's where it really truly started in terms of my eye-opening years to the iGaming industry, but also to HR. So after a year or so in Malta as an au pair, I met with some extraordinary humans, some of which started a startup. And I joined quite early on. I think I was the first employee in that organization.
Yes.
And in a startup environment, everyone does everything, right? Whatever needs to be done has to be done. So I think naturally over time, my path was sort of carved out because I leaned towards caring a bit more, perhaps, or caring deeply about the human aspects of things within the organizational context. So it came very natural that I eventually managed the recruitment and then the onboarding, that I took care of administration when it comes to hiring, and so forth. So that's where it all started, I would say.
So, how did you actually learn those things? Because, of course, for someone, for example, who doesn't come from a background where, they naturally say, went to university, studied HR or anything related to corporate culture, and you just join a startup and you actually had to probably just learn a lot of those things yourself.
100%. It was a lot learning by doing, but I think we underestimate the value of being a human, to be a good HR professional as well. So
Yeah.
at the time, I think I was around 20 years old or something. So at least I had 20 years of being a human, right? And for as long as I can remember, I've always been interested in understanding what that actually means. What is a human experience? What is it that drives our behaviors? And why do we do the things we do? And what how can the environment we're in and the humans we're exposed to influence who we become and how we act and so forth. So the interest, like a genuine interest about what drives humans forward, was always there. So I think I had that passion with me into that area. But then whilst I was working and in a startup environment, you don't really have the luxury of time to think too much. So it's a lot about doing. So if there's a problem, how can we solve it? And then, excuse me, over time, you identify some patterns, what seems to be working better than other approaches. So it was a lot of learning by doing, but then also on the side, I took courses and some programs as well within HR as well to add more knowledge. And then I was lucky to be exposed to, leaders, to other individuals and professionals. And I think I've always been curious and asked a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So that also helped me to navigate that role or that area.
But I think it's great that you mention it, because many people who work in different departments very often mention that sometimes human resources lose the human in the resources, if that makes any sense. And I think that's the key, that we should be aware as professionals in that space, and always keep in mind and as our priority to see that, we are here to represent the team and help them to feel accomplished and nurtured in their roles. So I think that's a great start that we should all always in the back of our heads, that maybe the things that you learn in terms of data and analytics, they are important too, but like the human should always be kind of at the beginning of when we are discussing anything related to that space and culture. So I know in your previous company, you've been there for a while, you grew the team and you've been quite successful. I mean, it's one of the most successful affiliate companies in the industry. It grew from this tiny little startup to a huge leader in the industry. And you did great things there. And I just thought, you've been there for a while, it must have been something really special about Fast Track that you decided to say, okay, I'm ready for a career change. So I was just wondering what was kind of your decision factor to join this particular company? Of course, if you don't mind sharing.
And no, I will do my very best. And there were multiple reasons, I would argue, that brought that decision forward. And like you said, I had been with the previous company for a decade before I joined Fast Track. And I am a believer that I think great things take time, and that's okay. And it was not an easy decision to make, to move from that successful space, a space I knew very well, into Fast Track, which was a new organizational context. But going back to what made me join, so this was 3.5 years ago. And initially, I was contacted by Simon, who is our co-founder and CEO and my direct manager today. And I think what I recall is that there was a part of it was a big, how to say it? There was a familiarity in connecting with sort of the essence of Fast Track at the time. I could relate a lot to the energy that they conveyed in the recruitment process. So I had the luxury to meet with a number of team members at the time, a few co-founders, but also team members from the core team of Fast Track. And they all signaled or communicated that they really cared about their company, about their product, about, you know, their culture. So that deep sense of caring about your work, about your creation was there, which was very attractive to me, because that resonates a lot with how I want to work as well. If I don't care about something, then what's the point, so to say?
Of course.
So that sense of care and passion was very attractive to me. But then also the fact that the company, Fast Track at the time, which is still true today, had a very strong vision, which they truly believed in. So the purpose was very clear, the vision was very clear, and it was one that I wanted to be part of, or I could see myself adding value towards achieving that vision. So that, of course, sparked my interest too. Some random aspect of it was also connecting with the brand, you know, so doing my own research on the side from the interviews and the conversations. I just fell in love with, you know, the colors of the logo, the content that was published. It was smart, it was witty, it was something that made me drawn to the company as well. So there were many aspects, but I think to summarize, definitely seeing the potential, how I could add value to Fast Track, and how I could contribute in the creation of the vision, and not the creation of the vision, but to actually accomplish it. And the sense of feeling at home, you know, connecting with their belief system and their essence and energy.
So how big was the team when you joined?
Okay, this might be the wrong number, but I think it was 32 or 37. I'm not entirely sure. I could go into the data now, but I don't want to interrupt our session. Around let's say between 35 and 40.
And how would you say the culture has changed since then? Because obviously the team has significantly grown, and just wondering, of course, you had a strong vision and mission, and that's again like a great start and great core to build on. But just wondering, you joining as a chief people officer, what was your role in adjusting this vision and mission to like day to day, and kind of like making sure that it's visible in everything that you do? And how has it changed since when you have joined? Do you think a lot has changed?
Okay, so when I joined, a number of them, you're testing my memory here, which is quite poor, but I'll do my best, but you might need to repeat some of the questions.
Sure.
When I joined, I joined as the head of HR, so I wasn't part of the senior leadership team at the time. So I had a very clear clear, what you call it, objective, which was to scale the company culture. And that objective still remains the same as such. But like you said, the context of Fast Track has evolved since. From that 35 employees, we are today about 100 employees, and we have offices in more locations than when I joined. And of course, the portfolio when it comes to our partners is growing too. So we have scaled as an organization, and that impacts the culture as well. But rather than saying that it has changed, I would say that it has evolved. It has become more than it was before. And I think we've made good decisions to consciously protect the culture, to protect what's really good about it, and identify ways to scale it over time as well. So this sort of essence that I described to some extent before of Fast Track, I would argue it's still very much there. It's still very much at the forefront. So the core of the culture is still here.
Yeah. The thing is, of course, my research and of course, knowing some people working for Fast Track in different locations, I know that, and that was, of course, one of the reasons also I really wanted to have you on the podcast. I know that the company is very well known for the culture and for the commitment to making it a great place to work. You also have been awarded for that. So I just wonder, because scaling the culture, that seems like quite a big thing to do, especially in our industry, when you hear very often, this company went for an acquisition or they grew very fast, and it's not the same that it has been before. You hear it very often, especially when I was living in Malta. It was very common in iGaming companies that people got used to the startup culture that was amazing, and then they grew, and as they grew, things changed. I think from my perspective, also having the experience working in-house, it was a big challenge to make sure that the culture is sustained and, like you said, is evolving and getting even better once the company scales. So I know it is a tough question, but how do you do that? In that way that you keep employees happy and you keep this amazing environment for everybody.
All right. Yes. So the first thing I think we did when I joined was to define what all of those things actually meant for Fast Track. So when it comes to culture, what is culture? And what is our culture? What does it actually mean? And how does it actually play out? How does that definition, let's say, or vision or purpose, whatever type of statement that you attach to culture, how does that actually play out in the workplace? What are the behaviors that is attached to the culture? And can we make them stay? How do we make them stay? So knowing the why behind your statements or terms like culture is, I would argue, extremely important. So initially we spent a lot of time discussing, documenting, sharing and communicating what culture actually means for Fast Track, because it is different in different contexts. What is culture for Fast Track will be something different in a different organization, right? So I think a starting point is to make sure that you know what you're talking about, if that makes sense, and that you are obviously also leading by example and embodying those statements or that ethos of your culture. That was portion of the answer, but then you had other questions as well. So what else did you say, John?
I'm gonna try to be more precise and give you shorter questions because I know I can get carried away a little bit because there are so many interesting things that I wanted to talk to you about. But going back to this Great Place to Work certification, what does that mean for Fast Track specifically? And maybe you can say a little bit more. What is this certification all about? Who those who might not have heard about it before?
Okay, cool. So let me give you some more context as well to why we decided to pursue that certification. So one of my challenges in my role, together with the rest of the HR team and of course the organization, like I said before, is to scale the company culture. We've also committed to maintain our status as a world-class employer. So
Yes.
going back to that importance of definitions and knowing what they mean to you. When that challenge sort of was defined to scale the company culture and to be a world-class employer, then the first thing that we looked at was, what does it mean to be a world-class employer? What do we actually mean by it? So then we broke it down, and looked at, okay, world class, being amongst the best employers in the world. Okay, now we understand that that's how it's defined. But then the challenge came of, okay, but how do we measure that? How do we know that that's actually true? Can we just say that we are a world class employer? No, we're data driven. We need to prove it, So that's when I started to doing some research and looking into different avenues of how we could measure that status. Eventually we looked at Great Place to Work, and Great Place to Work does exactly that. They define and certify great workplaces across the globe, and within their sort of offering, you are able to then also map out or see which organizations in different sectors in different parts of the world are considered as great places to work. So we started then looking into, okay, what are the organizations or areas in the world where we consider employers being at the top? And that led us to look into the Scandinavian area and Sweden in particular. We started looking at the organizations that were amongst the top 25, I believe, in that region as well. And eventually we then identified that, okay, that means if we want to be world-class in alignment with these organizations, we need to achieve a particular level of trust index, which is the scoring mechanism being used by Great Place to Work. So that brought us to the desire of achieving at least 89% when it comes to the trust index.
How is that measured? Is it going through some employee surveys, or how do you work with that?
Exactly. So what you do if you collaborate with Great Place to Work is that you launch a survey to your employees, the Great Place to Work survey. And that survey, I think it includes approximately 60 or 65 questions. It takes about 10 to 30 minutes to complete. And employees are being presented with a number of different statements, and they need to then agree to those statements to a lesser or a higher degree. And that measures, let me see how I can best describe this. The survey is measuring trust levels across the organization. So they have 5 different dimensions of trust. And I think it's credibility, respect, fairness, pride, and camaraderie. So what you then achieve, or what you receive as an employer and as an organization, is a trust score across those dimensions. So you measure trust when it comes to credibility, when it comes to respect, fairness, pride, and camaraderie. So that brings you very good insights into the perception of you as a workplace and as an employer once you obtain those results. And according to Great Place to Work, I think you are considered a great place to work when you achieve a 70% trust index. But then we define our own sort of world-class trust index being 89% or higher. So that's what we strive towards.
Amazing. Yes, well done. I mean, I think that's a great indication of what you have already achieved in fast track, and I'm sure you're just starting to spread your wings. Um, Going back a little bit to building the culture, because I love that you mentioned taking the Scandinavian organizational culture as example. I mean, there is so much research shown, and I think we talked about it a little bit before, that those Scandinavian companies really are doing a great job with, employee satisfaction, retention, just being great places to work. And that was one of the reasons why, or inspirations, working for a Scandinavian company myself in the past and being surrounded by tons of great Scandinavian clients over the years. That has been one of my inspirations to start the podcast, to kind of talk about it more and show it also internationally, that things that in some countries seem quite unbelievable actually exist, and they're doing extremely well also when it comes to productivity. So I know you have recently also opened an office in Florida, close to us in Fort Lauderdale. So I was wondering how, if having an office in a completely different location has in any way influenced how you approach building the culture, or if you have taken the exact same approach that you have taken building your culture in, say, the Malta office.
Yes, I think the approach is much the same because I think
Mm,
regardless of where we are located, we are agile in our approach, and we enter a market or we enter a location or an opening of an office with an open mind, with the learner's
yeah,
mindset, perhaps of looking at what are the core processes that we have in place, how can we best adapt them to fit this new environment, because there is I don't believe in the one size fits all. So when it comes to the US market and the Miami market as well, we are implementing our core processes, but we are making adjustments based on the needs locally, so to
mm,
say. But what we are very, how to put it, protective of is the culture, as I think
yeah,
we've touched upon throughout this call so far. So we do want to maintain what's great about the fast track culture, regardless of which location that we establish ourselves, and that is of course then also true to Miami.
yeah. So, what would you say right now that you already have achieved so much when it comes to the culture and employee satisfaction? What are the challenges that your team is facing right now? What are you guys working on?
In Miami or in fast track
In
in general?
general, yeah.
Yeah, I I think they're not unique to us as an organization. I
Mm,
think they are quite common in most scale ups. Um, it's what becomes more complex as you add more team members, for example, and more partners or clients into your world is, for example, communication, making
mm,
sure that it flows across all teams, making sure that we have the right level of connection points and that we meet regularly as a team, to make sure that information is shared in appropriate ways, to make sure that
yeah,
we maintain the strong relationships that we have internally as well. We welcome a lot of new team members on a regular basis, and we want to ensure that they are integrated in the best possible way, that they feel
yeah,
a sense of belonging, as has been the case for the rest of us, that joined years ago. So I think it's about the challenge is around maintaining what's great about fast track, as we
hmm,
grow bigger and as more complexity is added into the organizational context. So
yeah,
yeah, but yes, I think communication definitely, and then of course providing the right support to our team and to our leaders as well,
mm,
so that they feel more prepared to meet this new complexity that is coming our way.
Yes. So let's dive a little bit into some topics related to HR and the future and the trends. Last year, I remember you've been talking a little bit about AI in HR, in recruitment, and all the new emerging trends. What are the things that you're working on or implementing into your team right now that can help you automate the processes and just be more agile in general?
Right. Yes. We always look for efficiencies, ways to work smarter as a team, so that we can accomplish more together. So it's definitely on the top of our minds and at our hands, if that makes sense. That we
Yeah.
look for ways to optimize the processes we currently have in place, looking for ways to better integrate technology to make us smarter and better. So that's definitely part of the ongoing agenda, I would argue. Yes, what else are we focused about? Now I lost the thread of your question again,
Any new
but I
tools
think
that you have been using that maybe you can share that could be interesting for someone in our space to try?
absolutely. I think when it comes to recruitment, for example, we've been testing different types of tools. I'm sure that you're not a stranger, Joanna, to note-taking tools and AI support in
Yes.
that area, which is working quite well, I would argue. We have one tool in particular that we are testing out right now, and I'm receiving great feedback from both hiring managers and from the hiring team as well. We've also been looking into some coaching tools as well for leaders,
Okay.
as an additional partner to go to, rather than needing potentially to wait for HR at times, or someone from our team to support. However, I'm not convinced yet based on what I've seen. So I think there is still work to do in that area. But huge potential though. And then I think it's very interesting to look at it from like a learning and development perspective as well. I think that is a space where generative AI in particular, it's going to come up with some really interesting solutions moving forward too.
Yes, I mean, of course, our jobs have completely changed, and there are so many different things that we have already implemented and are using, but there are also certain things that are quite controversial in terms of recruitment and in terms of the involvement of AI, for example, when it comes to maybe pre-screening or pre-selecting the candidates
Yeah.
who apply directly, say on your website. So just wondering if this is something that you are using, if you're using any type of pre-video interviews, things like that, or if you are being more careful with that.
Yeah, I think we are being more careful
Yeah.
when it comes to that aspect of removing the first point of contact being human. We have not done so. So when it comes to the screening stages, that is done by our hiring team. They are the most qualified to do so.
Yeah.
I think it's the way that we are applying AI in recruitment at the moment is more to support the team with the administrative burden that is normally placed on them. So it makes them work in a smarter way. It supports them paying better attention to a candidate in an interview by simply engaging in the conversation, rather than
Yeah.
needing to, for example, think of taking notes at the same time. So it's that type of application that we are making at the moment when it comes to these types of tools.
Yes, and I love that. I've heard a lot of very different feedback. I've heard from companies that are using a lot of tools for pre-screening purposes, and it's been working great for them. But also heard from candidate perspective, especially in the corporate US world, that they need to optimize their CVs very much based on the AI requirements, and it starts becoming tricky, and candidates might not be noticed in case their CV does not contain specific keywords, for example. So I think it can be a challenge. And I think it also depends on the size of the organization, of course, which tools you need to use and the size of your team. Sometimes there is no other choice. But I do believe when you do have choice, you should not miss out on candidates just because, technology doesn't allow you to see through certain keywords.
No, and I agree with you there. And that's very interesting, actually, because I think that's important to think about when you implement these types of tools that will impact not only you, but another party as well. So who do you actually implement it for? And if it's important to you, as it is for us at Fast Track, to protect the candidate experience, then we need to then consider that if we apply this tool in the interviews, what type of experience does that bring to the candidates?
Exactly.
So that has also been part of our exploration to then collect also feedback from candidates. For example, if we've had an AI recorder of the interview, how was that like for the candidate, and what was it like for the hiring manager as well, to have this third party, so to say, recording or tuning in to the conversation? Did that influence or impact or affect the interview? And if so, is it something that we can accept and that we want to proceed with? So I think it's very, very important to first have a very clear why you implement any type of tool, if it's AI or any kind of different technology. You need to know what type of purpose it fills.
Yes, and of course, we know that the candidate experience throughout the recruitment process and the onboarding, it all contributes to retaining this person in the role and for them feeling welcome and important. So I was just very curious to see what's your perspective on it, but I'm glad that that the human part is still there. I think it just makes such a difference, and I think more and more so that many companies are switching to very automated processes in that area too.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. It really is.
Yes, and I mean, I'm definitely a fan of AI, of automation, of all those different tools. I keep testing, I keep learning. So I'm definitely not one of those people who say definitely no. But I just think it's just about thinking about it and making smart decisions that are best for your team, but also for candidate experience and the culture in general. So yeah. Yes. So just going back a little bit to your personal journey now that maybe we'll start wrapping up soon. I just wondered, now you've been in Fast Track for a while. So what would you say you have learned personally, and are there any particular people or mentors, anything that anyone specific that has influenced your journey to be where you are today?
Oh wow, there's so many individuals that I could list. Like I'm fortunate in that way to be exposed to fantastic humans. I consider the team at Fast Track as humans at their best. So the inspiration doesn't stop. It's been there from day one, and yeah, I'm very, very thankful and grateful for working with such a strong team that inspires me and motivates me daily. When it comes to the learnings, I think when I joined Fast Track, I had an idea that I was going to reinvent myself a little bit. I had these big thoughts of, okay, now I'm going to be this type of leader and this type of HR professional. I'm going to do a couple of things differently. So I entered with the thought of changing myself. But what I ended up doing was becoming more of myself. I found myself in an environment where I felt safe to be more of me, to express more of my ideas, to test new things, to not be afraid of launching what's not perfect and so forth. So I think one of the greatest learnings is to be more myself, and that's possible in a work environment like Fast Tracks. I think it's a tech company, right? And we're not afraid of testing out new things as well, and it's very collaboratively driven too. So that's also a great learning that I've acquired early on and now as well. That share your ideas, like collaborate with others to make them better, and don't get too attached by your own sort of work. Know that it can be challenged and it could be challenged. So that has also helped me as well to get more stuff done, and to innovate more and to be more creative in my role as an HR professional as well. So I think that is something I'm very grateful for. And then when it comes to individuals, Joanna, I can just thank everyone, so it's really hard for me to pinpoint. I'm not doing this by myself, that's for sure. I'm very lucky to have a great senior leadership team that I collaborate with every day. Simon as a co-founder and CEO, and my manager, he's fantastic. My HR team that has evolved over time, brilliant. So happy that we are working on this challenge, together, scaling the company culture, also in collaboration and close collaboration, I would argue, with the rest of the organization. So many that I have to thank. But I do want to highlight, though, that it is important to have others that you can share with. So something that I do encourage anyone pursuing a career in HR, anyone that is wanting to, let's say, enter a leadership position, seek out for help, like speak with mentors, ask for advice, identify your own sort of board of directors who can support me when it comes to this particular area. Oh, that person, I'm going to go and have a coffee with that person and borrow their knowledge and experience a little bit. I think that has helped me a lot to not be afraid of asking for help, realizing that most individuals and professionals, they do want to see others succeed and they are willing to share their knowledge. So that has also been a huge help for me.
Yeah, but I think that's extremely important because in some larger organizations, maybe HR and leadership are kind of perceived separately. And I think this should be such a unit. And I love that you mentioned that, and that this is kind of what you already walked into, because you did say that the leadership already had that vision and the mission when you walked into, and then you kind of worked together on just making it better. So I just think this is something very important for many organizations to keep in mind, that this is how it's supposed to be. It's not two separate teams. We care about the business side and the numbers, and we care about the people. It all goes together.
Yeah, they both, or all of those aspects, make part of the culture, right? So culture is everyone's business, and everyone contributes to it in one way or another, even if they don't want to. So I think you're better equipped for cultural success if you engage the whole organization, all levels, all departments, all areas.
Absolutely. And I mean, Jenny, I told you before, you have been a great inspiration to me, and I'm sure you are on a daily basis for your team as well. You always work with so much passion. So I just wonder, I'm sure you are working with your more junior team members and helping them out and being this mentor figure for them. So what would be the advice for someone who is joining SaaS company or an iGaming company in the early stages and kind of need to build a culture? Where do they start? What do you think is the best piece of advice that you can get those very passionate junior HR professionals that are at the beginning of their journey?
That's such a lovely question. Let me just start by first and foremost, like, thank you for the kind words. I'm doing my very best, and I'll continue to do so for my teams and others that interact with me. So thanks for that. When it comes to entering a SaaS context or iGaming context, if you're passionate HR rising star, let's say, or professional in the early stages of your career, I think my best piece of advice is invest time in self-reflection, identify what truly sparks your lively energy. What are the areas within HR, let's say, or people and culture that really livens you up, that you are drawn to naturally? And if you identify that area, expose yourself to that area more. That's one piece of advice. The other piece of advice I would say or share is know your context, because what we do as HR professionals, it's very contextual. If we want to be effective and successful, we need to know our environment. We need to identify new ways of applying, let's say, known practices within HR. So how you implement a recruitment process in one organization is going to look different in a different organization. So it's very important, I think, to understand the system that you enter, the context of the organization, and to be close to, the business model, to understand how it works, to understand your proposition to the world as a business. That's also extremely important to add more value from an HR point of view. So I think those are some of the advices. Yes. What else can I say? Like, be yourself. It takes too much energy to try to be something else or someone else. Again, spend time in solitude or with yourself. Learn what your essence is, and then find a work environment where you can apply who you are.
Yes, and what you touched upon already in the previous question, don't be afraid to ask questions and look for mentors. I think it's so important to have someone to even bounce ideas off and just, get some backup information and just learn from.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be anything big. There's nothing dramatic about reaching out and asking a question. And just because you call someone your mentor, you're not committing to a lifelong relationship. Sometimes I reached out to someone. Sometimes I reached out to someone that I know has been, let's say, really knowledgeable or passionate about a particular specific topic or area. And I would have had just one or two questions about that area. We have a call and I learned something, and hopefully the other person might have learned something too. And then that's it. That was the end of that mentorship or that relationship. Yeah. So I think something I've learned is to not create this big thing out of sometimes very small things that can be supportive of your growth. Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, well,
but Joanna, can I turn the tables just quickly, because you're a huge inspiration for me as well, and you're a business owner, you're a leader, you have a fantastic career and background yourself, and you're a woman too. And what would be your advice to your listeners to take your path, so to say?
That's always a tricky question. The biggest lesson that I have had is to learn maybe not to be hard on yourself and be okay with failing sometimes. And then when I was younger, I had to be perfect, and I had to reach all my goals and perfectly follow the exact path. But when I grew older, and obviously the business is now 7 years old, so so it's been a minute of ups and downs. I think I learned to be okay with, if something maybe didn't work completely according to the plan, that there is a purpose of that, and I'm going to see it a little bit later down the line. So just be yourself, keep doing what you're doing, and be consistent. I think many businesses fail at the beginning because we get this excitement and when we first start, and then maybe you have one hiccup or some things happen down the line and you think, okay, this is not going to work. Yes, it will. You just need to put the work consistently, only always look at the bigger picture, and have those bigger long-term goals, but focus on today. Like always think, what can I do today to make this month amazing and the year even better, so we can be where we want to be in a year's time. So I think those would be my biggest lessons so far. But I love that you said be yourself. I think being a woman in business, sometimes it's challenging, and you try to be always on top of your game, always extremely professional. But sometimes when you lose it all and you just yourself, and then you have the best results, because people then see your genuine passion for your business and everything that you do. So I think that helped me, but it definitely came with time. It was challenging at the beginning to, of course, just be okay with sometimes making a mistake and sometimes not having the perfect day and doing everything perfectly.
Yeah, agreed. And I think you touched upon a very valid statement there, that things takes time as well, and that's okay. And for good or for bad, it has to take time to learn. It won't happen overnight. But you can acquire knowledge, I think, faster through others. So again, going back to that, reach out to others that inspires you, that you want to learn from, that can support you along your journey.
Absolutely. I mean, we have had mentors throughout this entire journey. And like you said, sometimes it wasn't a coach that we have for 6 months. Sometimes it was just, someone else from the industry or another founder who is going through the same journey. I'm going to have Michelle from the Nomad Escape on the podcast as well. It's a entrepreneurs community that I'm part of, that I absolutely love, because you always can get advice from different places. And so I think this is important, to surround yourself with people who will inspire you, whether you have consistent mentor who's guiding you on the business journey, or whether you just have people who are like-minded and going through the same thing. Just have an open mind, keep learning. I love learning. I'm a little bit a nerd when it comes to all the newest tech and newest things in HR, the newest tools. So that's always been very exciting for me, to also just learn from other people constantly and never lose it.
What are you learning now? Now I'm curious. What's your
I'm learning
key
a lot
learning
from
path?
you. It's been a very, very, I think, information loaded conversation, but really inspirational. I love what you guys do as Fast Track, and I think there are so many organizations that can learn from this approach, and just try to make their workplaces better and happier. And I know it sounds very idealistic for some people, but I just think it comes down to the talent culture team, but it also comes down to every single person in the organization to keep that in mind, and just make sure that everyone enjoys. I mean, we spend so much time at work. It impacts all areas of our life. So why wouldn't we focus on that? It can really massively contribute to many things, not only the happiness at work, I believe.
No, I agree completely. And like you said, it requires conscious effort. I think that's one of the
Mhm.
key things. Like you success is not something you can take for granted. You need to work on it constantly. I think that's one of my key learnings as well, that you can't relax, you can't take it for granted. You need to work on it every day. Um, so that is another learning perhaps that we can share in this forum, that you need to work for success. You need to make conscious decisions that takes you to where you want to go.
Yes, especially in the space that we are in, that's constantly evolving and changing. And we're dealing with people and different cultures. I think the added bonus for me, it's always been that I've been working with so many different nationalities, with so many different cultures, like pretty much from the beginning of my career. But I am sure that it's completely different leading a people team when you work in a smaller organization in a small town, say in the middle of Sweden, or when you are actually trying to make it an amazing place for people from 30 different nationalities, and you need to take all those differences, different cultures, different holidays, all those different things into consideration. So for me, it's always made it so much more fun, but I know it's a lot of work behind that too.
Oh, I agree. I agree. That's one of the best parts, I think, and something we don't talk enough about when it comes to our industry as well. I think with the iGaming industry, that the exposure to diversity is so vast. And to me, it's been life changing to be part of that world. It has influenced who I am today in so many different ways. And I know that that is also true for a lot of our team members entering Fast Track and entering the industry, that it truly opens your mind, and it supports problem solving, I think, in extraordinary ways, that when you are exposed to some aspect of diversity, then you are in a position to find solutions to problems in a
Yes.
certain way. But then when you enter, I think, our industry, then all of a sudden the problems, they are also there. They might be multiplied, but you also have access to a lot more solutions and viewpoints and perspectives. So that's a true
Absolutely.
true sell point for our industry, I think.
Absolutely. I think we're so lucky to be part of this industry. And the more I travel, the more I work with different companies in other industries as well. And I had an experience last year when we first joined the US market, when I made my first hires for European iGaming companies in the US. And the feedback that I have received, I was just so excited to be able to do this, because people were so excited about the culture, about how they're treated in the company. And I'm sure there are many incredible American companies with incredible culture as well. But of course, I was new to that scene, and just having the opportunity to introduce someone to the excitement of the iGaming industry in the new market, it was very rewarding for me to see and to get all this positive feedback. So I think that it is a special industry, and many companies in this industry are emphasizing the cultural aspect. It's very visible when we're hiring for businesses in this space.
And Joanna, I know that you're trying to wrap up, but I just have one more question for you, if that's okay, because you
Sure.
mentioned now that you were very
Go
excited
ahead.
about the the opportunity to introduce, this talent pool into the iGaming industry. Like, what surprised them when you introduced iGaming companies to that particular talent pool? What was it about us, so to say, that
Uh-huh.
they
Yeah,
had
good
not been
question.
exposed to before?
I think like initially it was just, oh, wow, great benefits. We're going to get 25 days paid time off and all those things. And that was amazing. But I always check in with my candidates 3 months in, So, a little bit, maybe those things don't matter that much once they're settled and they get used to it. But I think the fact that, first of all, they were exposed to a lot of client relations very, very early on, that they have been having very direct contact with the leaders. I think that was a big one, actually, that came up on a couple occasions where they said, you know what? I can just call the CEO, or I can call my direct manager. In our previous organizations, the hierarchy was so much more visible. So I think, of course, initially it's all the perks and fun part of it, and just being a part of a fun industry. But I think in general, the low hierarchy, it's a big one. So I think that's the biggest difference. But there are probably many more.
Thank you for sharing. And sorry for hijacking your podcast with questions on my end.
No worries. Feel free. If you have any more questions, then shoot.
Oh, Joanna, we're gonna stay here for the rest of the day then, because I have a long list. But I'll pause myself for now, because I know you have a schedule that you need to adhere to.
Okay, well, I'm sure we're gonna continue over a coffee at some point, whether it is in Malta and Stockholm or in Miami. We will see. But I'm really grateful that you took the time today, Jenny. It's been a pleasure, and I'm so happy because we've been talking about doing something together for so long now that we finally had the opportunity.
Me too. Thank you so much again for having me, Joanna. This has been a pleasure. Great opportunity for me to practice. I've never been in a podcast before to have these types of conversations. So thank you for the opportunity.
Amazing. I'm very honored that my podcast was first, hopefully of many. Thank you so much, Jenny.
Thank you so much.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining me on Culture Pulse, the heartbeat of your workplace. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and found some insights to take back to your team. Don't forget to subscribe for more discussions, and for all the latest updates on the podcast, follow Magic Mondays Miami on LinkedIn. See you next time!